Our topic this morning is self in Western and Oriental or Eastern thought. So from the title itself, we will be talking about the Western's understanding of themselves as compared to the Eastern understanding of themselves. The Eastern thought that belongs to us Filipinos, we are part of it. The Oriental, while the Western, dito na siya sa America, sa Australia, okay, inana siya. So let's start about this Western concept of self. Actually, very, kuha na kayo ni siya, minimal discussions about this one. Kay, masking wala pa siguro ta naka-discuss by just the word Western, we already know what are or what how these people see themselves, how they carry themselves, di ba? Mahibalaan na nato. Kabalo na ta, basta taga-Amerika, liberated, basta taga-kuan, inani, inana. Masing wala pa ta kabalo, wa pa nato na discuss, na natay assumptions ana. So, an ancient Grecian philosopher see humans as the bearers of irreplaceable values. So the individual was the focus of Renaissance thought. With René Descartes, I think, therefore I am, as the epitome of the Western idea of the self. The word, take note of the word I. No? There was an emphasis of the word I. Basta ko, unsa kong nauna-unaan, o mauna ako. Kung unsa kong gusto, o mauna siya kung gusto buhaton. Kung kinsa man ko, mauna ni ako. Mauna siyang concept sa Western idea sa ilahang kaugalingon. Ang ilahang nahimong murag context or concept base is from René Descartes. I think, therefore, I am. Okay? And Mr. Frank Johnson's identified four categories in the Western discussion. First, we have the analytical. So when we say analytical, it is the tendency to see reality as an aggregate parts or me versus others. So as you can observe later on, there will always be an emphasis on me or imong kaugalingon. Ikaw versus sa ubang tao, not you with other people, but you and others, or you versus others. There's always an emphasis on your independence, tendencies to see reality. You are part of the group, but you are not with the group. Murag inaana gud siya, inaana ang emphasis. And next we have the monotheistic, the tendency toward a unitary explanation of phenomena and closed system view of self. So man was created by God. Napod sila tendency, napod sila thinking nga ang tao is binuhat po siya sa Ginoo, no? Na binuhat sa Ginoo. There will always be somebody who created a person. Naapoy individuals nga inani po ng ilahang thinking, monotheistic. There will always be somebody who created human, no? Sa atua. Kung sa atua diri sa Philippines, we believe in this one. Monotheistic po ta dihang dapita. Wag naatay concept nga naay somebody nga nag-create sa atua. And that is not also kumbaga dili po na siya ingon nga wala sa Western countries na apo na ning gawa sa ilaha. And we have this individualistic or the tendency towards fulfilling self-expression and self-actualization as well as satisfaction of the world. So your independence, no? Me, myself, and I. Kung unsa imong gusto buhaton, go, buhaton nimo. That is you being you, your self-expression, your self-actualization, satisfaction of the world, whatever you want to do. Una siya. Uban, sa tanaw niya, mali niya, mutindog siya dito, iyang isulti ang iyang gibati. Di ko ganahan sa imong gibuhat. That is being individualistic. Nya, kung diri sa ato apod sa Philippines, naaman tay mga individualistic nga tao, daghan tag mga inaani, daghan kaayo na siya karong generation. Pero again, naaghapon siya idea ba nga kung musturya ka sa imuhang gusto isulti, mura ganig ka ng nagduha-duha ka basig malain siya, basig kuan, basig kasab-an ko ni kinani na mga inana nga kuan reservations. Unlike sa mga particular countries, for example, Western countries, but not all, there are really some of them who are into individualistic point of view. And next, we have materialistic or the rationalistic, the tendency to discredit explanation that do not use analytic, deductive modes of thinking. So, or kaning rational thinking. Um, Rational thinking, ato naman ang na-discuss, katong kay Rene Descartes, nga most likely, whatever you are doing, there will always be reasons. Nagyud na siya rason, dili siya automatic gibuhat nimo isa ka butang kay gusto lang nimo. There will always be reasons. If nakapanakit kag laing tao, there is a reason for that. Murag inana god, murag wala man koy sala. Wa man koy sala kay inani man, inani man, inani man. So inana siya nga point of view. There will always be reasons to every action nga imuhang buhaton. And those are the four categories in about the self in Western discussion. Ang para sa ilaha, that is the self divided into four categories. It could be all of this naa sa isa ka tao tanan in sometime na ingon nga inani unya mokalit lang siya ka materialistic nga mokalit lang siya ka inana na may inana nga tendency. There's also other countries nga into uh, kuan gihapon kana galing monotheistic pod kayo sila. So murag sa ilahang kuan sa base sa ilahang study mao ni siya nang gawas nga murag understanding or concept of self in the Western countries. Murag mao ni ang ilahang tan-aw based sa discussion. Okay? So inato lang siya ka dali. Again sa akong gi-mention ganina, maskin pag dili na to i-discuss kabalo na gyud ta kung mingon tag Western countries, mao na dayon ni sila. Murag nagay stereotyping nga mali man ang stereotyping, but based from what we have read, based from what we observe, what we see in the televisions, tanan, murag mao'y nakita nato nga common sa ilaha, na? Do you agree with me? Or do you want to add something? Eastern concept of self. So unlike the Western concept of self, yes, the Eastern concept of self, unlike the Western thoughts, four categories of the self, ang kanisa Eastern more on the belief kay parang yung pagtuo sa mga tao usually monotheistic manggod ang kasagaran na sa Oriental countries. Mutuo ta nga na somebody nga above us. And mao ni siyang emphasis sa Oriental or Eastern concept of self. I will be introducing religions or faith that is present in the Eastern countries or the Oriental countries. And we will not be discussing further about this religions. Kay you have your RS subjects for that. Ang antuan lang focus is their idea of the self, no? Sa kaninga mga religion nga atong i-introduce. Okay, first we have Hinduism. So Hinduism, mo ni siyang ilang ginatuuhan nga above them or creator kaning nasa photo, no? Nasa photo. Okay, Vedas, the earliest religious writing in the East, it formed the Hindu philosophy and dharma or the principle of cosmic order. So the chants and hymns in the Vedas illustrate the Eastern mindset of non-dual universe or unified universe with no distinction. So according to this sacred Hindu text, the true nature of human daw is described as Brahman, so which is the divine universal consciousness encompassing the universe. So that is the true nature of human is described as Brahman. So the Brahman is the self that is all within us. So that's one of the main points of Hinduism is change your perception of the world to perceive the Brahman in oneself and in others. So they believe that each one of us na ginatawag nga Brahman. Mo na naa sa ato ang kana sa sulod nato. And ang iyang point is kinahanglan nato usbon ang atong paglantaw sa kalibutan para makita nato ang Brahman nga ginatawag, or the self in us. That's their term for their self, Brahman. Muna siya ang emphasis. And in ato lang siya ka ang iyang concept. Again, I will not be discussing further about it. Mao lang to siya akong mao lang na siyang emphasis sa kuan ang para sa ilaha ang kana dong self nato nara sa atua, no? It's within us. We are carrying it, and to be able to appreciate Brahman that we already have, we need and we have to change our perception of the world. Kung unsay palitan, tan-aw nato nagkagubot na gyud kaayo. We will always have to see or to change that there will always be goodness sa tanan nato nakita. There will always be reasons why this is happening for us to be able to appreciate what we already have or the Brahman that is within us. Muna siyang emphasis sa kaning koan sa Hinduism about themselves, about the self. Okay? And we have Buddhism. It is composed of the teachings of Buddha. So in Buddhist traditions, the self is not an entity, a substance or essence. Rather, the self um, the self is a dynamic process. It is interdependent and ever changing. So the Buddha taught a doctrine called anatta, which is often described as no self or no soul. Okay? So take note of the words or the phrase I highlighted. So the self though is not an entity, a substance or essence. Rather, the self is a dynamic process. Meaning to say, ang self, dili siya ingon nga mauna gyud na siya. Dili siya ingon nga, that's it. That is you. It is daw a dynamic process. It is changing from time to time. Mausab gyud daw na siya. And Buddhist traditions holds that the human being's inborn erroneous view of the self as an enduring entity in the cause of his or her suffering because he or she tries to hold on to that which is in constant flux, so constantly flowing or constantly changing, and has no existence uh, outside of shifting concept. Thus, a new corrective experience of the self is needed. So human beings inborn erroneous views of self as an enduring entity, it is the cause of his or her sufferings. Kana daw kana ganing pagtan-aw nimo sa imong kaugalingon, most likely uh, gianak ka, nagdako ka, mao na imong tan-aw sa imong kaugalingon, mali na imong tan-aw sa imong kagalingon, that is the cause of your suffering daw. No? Mao din na siya pinaka-reason nga kung unsa ka karon, whatever you are into right now, the state of life that you are in right now, that's because of how you view yourself. If you view yourself erroneously or mali ang imong pagtanaw sa imong kagalingon, then that could give you the sufferings, or that's the reason why you are suffering that one. Kaya ang para sa ag-emphasize niya, a new corrective experience of the self is needed. So kung sa una mo na gyud ang tan-aw sa imuha mo, na imong tan-aw sa imong kaugalingon, there should be correction, kailangan usbon ang pagtan-aw sa imong kaugalingon. You need to re-experience something to be able to correct what has been experienced nga wrong or that made you see yourself wrongly. So there should always be change. So, kailangan siya usbon. So Buddhism takes a great interest in how people experience their self rather than just their abstract idea of it, because Buddhist practices are designed to lead to a new or correct experience of self. So it takes arduous training to modify or overcome the natural state of experiencing the self as persisting and unchanging. So the emphasis nga Buddhism is into experience or experiential. Kinahanglan daw nimo ma-experience, dili siya ingon nga huna-huna lang. For example, gusto na ko ni unta no inani no unta inani, dili daw na siya mao ang sa Buddhism. The emphasis is you experiencing yourself, no? Ikaw mismo ang mo experience sa kung unsa may dapat nimo experience. If you want to change something, then you need to do something for you to be able to experience that. Nga later on there will be corrections. Kay mo man ang emphasis, kinahanglan i-correct kung unsa may erroneous or mali nga pagtan-aw sa kaugalingon. And dili siya limited sa kuan idea lang, you need to act on it, you need to do something. Mo na siya sa Buddhism. Okay, and next we have Confucianism. So in Confucianism, the quest for the self in terms of substance of spirit, of body, or of essence does not exist. So the qualities that form a person's character are not something that exists inherently. Rather, in Confucian thought, it is something that is formed through upbringing of the environment. So, mura siya og behavioral ba nga para sa ila wa man daw na exist ng spirit body, kanang wa man daw na sa self, wala man daw na siya, wala man daw self, no, wala na siya nag-exist. Rather ang kana daw siya madala sa upbringing, kung unsa may giunsa ka pagpadako sa imong ginikanan, giunsa ka pag unsa may environment nimo karon, based from the people around you, the upbringing, the experiences that you are into, then that makes you yourself. That makes yourself. Mo na siya ang self para sa Confucianism. So, in the Confucian philosophy, they presented the idea that every person is born with four beginnings. We have the heart beginning, the the heart of compassion, the heart of righteousness, the heart of propriety, and the heart of wisdom. So, heart of compassion, that leads to Jen, means the goodwill, sympathy towards others, politeness, and generosity. And heart of righteousness, or the Yi, means rightness and the respect of duty, respecting your position as a guard toward nature and humanity. And the heart of propriety, the Li, means having the right to practice propriety in all you do. And wisdom, or the heart of wisdom, which is the Chi, means wisdom that uh, is expressed by putting Jin, Yi, Lin into practice. So, ang kaning wisdom makuha kung buhaton daw kaning tulong nga naa sa babaw. Para sa ilaha, sa Confucian philosophy, each one of us, we are born with this one, with all of these four. Naa daw taani. Mo ni ang pinakasugod. We all have this. We are all born with compassion, with righteousness, and propriety. And if we do all of those three, then we can have the wisdom. Okay, natay wisdom. So, mo na siyang iyahang panglantaw na siya inana. Okay. I hope you can follow, no? So we will continue with Taoism. Okay? Taoism, so unlike Confucianism, Taoism does not regard the self as an extension of or defined by social relationships. Rather, the self is but one of the countless manifestation of the Tao. Unsa man day ng Tao. Ang kaning symbol, familiar ni sa inyo, no? murag nakit-an na ninyo sa mga commercials or kung asa man ninyo nakit-an, this is a very familiar and common symbol, no? And some other some other artists or kung unsa man, they used to address or call this symbol as kanang something gali nga balance, a representation of equality, balance, mana siya ang representation sa kaninga symbol. So Taoism rejects a hierarchical view of the self, society, or cosmos. So for Taoism, the perfect man has no self. So the special man has no achievement, the spiritual man, I mean, and the true sage has no name or selflessness. So mao na siya ang para sa Taoism, no? Mao lang na ang iyang kuan. Subject and object and self and other are concealed in the oneness of the Tao. Kanang kaning inani nga kuan, if mag-unite na siya, murag makancel gali ang mga considerations. The focus is selflessness. Wala tay ginatawag nga walay tawag na self. Wala murag pagiging selfless, no consideration, mga you are doing whatever you want to do because there is no particular reason. Dili ingon nga inani, tungod kay inana, tungod kay inana. Basta kay you ought to do that, and normally you just want to do it, no? O lang imuhang gusto without considering yourself nga gusto na ako uni kay gusto na ako maka-feel og something, maka-feel og wala na siya inana para sa ilaha. This negotiation of the duality implies or doesn't imply the undifferentiating between the self and others, but refers to no fixed ideas of the self by giving a total freedom to the individual identity, which allows the interpenetration and interfusion between two polarities ang kaning duha diri. And if you want to know more about this symbol, you can always do your research kay or that will be discussed sa inyong RS subject, no? Di lang na kay nato palawmon og taman, okay? They are only into their idea of the self. So the emphasis is selflessness. So Taoism, selflessness. There is no self daw para sa ilaha. Okay, next we have Islam. Among the others, among the other religions or beliefs that we have discussed, this is the most common or observable sa ato ang lugar diri sa Philippines. There was no mention of Christianity sa kuan, Christianity sa ato ang discussion karon kay ang kanimang Christianity dili man gyud na siya nag-originate diri sa Eastern, no? Wala man ni diri sa atoa. Naabot lang na diri sa atoa tungod sa kanong colonization, no? Sa colonization abot siya. So mo ni siya ang kaning mga gipang discuss, most likely nag-originate na siya sa Eastern or sa Oriental countries. Okay? So dito sa Islam, again, we will not be talking much about this. We will just focus on the self to them. And I think, I don't know if we have students here who is Islam. Do we have an Islam student here? Murag naatay estudyante nga ko andere. Okay, no? So, di lang nato siya pangutanon. Murag naatay estudyante nga Islam. Para sa ilaha, ang kaning sa Islam daw, ang kaning ginatawagan naf, this refers to the self in the Holy Quran. Mao na ang naf. Naf is the self according to or based from the Holy Quran. So Holy Quran, that is there. Kumpara sa Christianity or sa Christians, mo ng Bible nga, Holy Bible nga ginatawag. So the psyche or the totality of the conscious and the unconscious mind, the Quran does not ascribe any property of goodness or evil to the nafs or self. So it has to be nurtured and self-regulated so that it can progress into becoming good or evil through its thoughts and actions. So, na siya emphasis on regulation, self-regulation, and nurturance. Para if ever man nga kuan, kung mahimo ang good or bad, kanang ikaw gani mismo ang nag-control. Ikaw mismo ang nag-control. So the self in Islamic tradition is used both in the individualistic and collective sense. Mm, okay. Individualistic and the collective sense, which I will be discussing later on the differences between kanang unsa man ang individualistic o collectivist sense. So, um, okay. So again, mo lang na siyang emphasis sa Islam. Para sa ilaha, mo na siya ang nav and it has to be nurtured or self-regulated. So I will not be talking much about this one. Okay? So we will proceed sa individualistic and collective sense. Okay? It was mentioned, yeah, it's a combination of that one. And this has been discussed earlier, no? Katong giingon ganina, there is a term, correct term when we say kanang pagiging liberated, pagiging inana, na ana siya tama nga tawag ana. And that is what we call individualistic and collective self. So if as you can see in the picture, this is the wheel of life in terms of kanang philosophy ba, Eastern and Western philosophy. Ang sa East, nirvana signifies the end of the eternal cycle of the reincarnation. Murag galig spiritual based kayo ang East. Pero sa West, everything must be accounted for within this lifetime. Kinakanan, kana family, friends, environment, mao na siya ang the very reasons of our existence that we need to experience all of this. That is the Western philosophy. Ang sa Eastern philosophy, most likely we believe nga there is salvation, nga at the end of the day, na ay Ginoo, there is a creator, na ana, whatever we call our creator, mutuo ta nga ana. Nga ang sa Western, wala kaayo siya. Wala kaayo. Naaman siya, mutuo sila Ginoo, mutuo man pero most likely naadyo yung mga kuan didto, daghan po didto nga naka-focus na tanan diri kani trabaho, mao na nahimong kuan nila, ang environment, achievement, mao na siyang reasons of their existence. Okay? And kung i-observe nato diri sa atuang kaugalingon diri sa Philippines, it's a combination of the Eastern and Western philosophy. Kay tungod kita daghan man mga countries ang nag-colonize sa atua gikan pa sa unang panahon. Daghan kayo nag-anhi sa atong lugar, colonize ta, and we were able to embrace their culture, and somewhat as of the moment, as of now, ang katong tanan nga mga culture sa nag-colonize sa atua, ato pong nakuha. Pag nahimot ang combination ba kung sa kuan pa mistisa na kuan combination of kanang sa Japanese culture, American, Spanish, no? So kato sila mo to sa majority nga nag-anhi sa ato ay. It's a combination of Eastern and Western philosophy, okay? And sa individualistic self, individualistic cultures such as in the US, America, the Great Britain, Canada, Netherlands, New Zealand emphasize the moral worth of the individual. So individualists encourage asserting one's goals and desires, and they highly value independence and self-reliance. They assist that the interests of the individual should take precedence over the state or a social group. So they strongly oppose external interference by society or institutions such as the government upon one's own interests. So individualistic cultures are oriented around the individual, so that a person should be independent instead of having the mentality of identifying with the group. Sa kung very opposite siya sa ato ang point of view nga, ang sa ato ang naandan diri sa atong stick self, if even though kung sa maskin pag wala pa nato na siya na discuss, and in fact you've already identified even before we discuss the topic na ang mga tag individualistic cultures or self, most likely the decisions are coming from your own self based from your interest. Kung say gusto nimo, if you want to stand up and say something, that's all on you. There is no influence from there is no influence from your parents, your family, your friends. But most of the time, you are making decisions for your own self, for your own good. Unlike sa tuwa diri, very opposite. Um, sa diri sa Philippines, we are in the collective self na there is an emphasis on the relationship that we have from our or with our friends, with our family. And there was actually a study conducted by a Filipino psychologist, no? Filipino psychologist Patricia Lukwanan. He is also an educator, and she determined one of the strengths of the Filipino character is our deep love and concern for family, which includes not simply the spouses, the children, parents, and siblings, but also grandparents, aunts, cousins, godparents, and all other ceremonial relatives. So, kita, basta maingon nga ninang na anato or second cousin, lola, apo sa tuhod, or sa panadira, big deal kay na sa ato ah. We need to show respect and to establish relationship with these people. Kay ah dili siya para sa kung ma-observe na to sa other countries, wala man na sa ilahan ng mga bless, no? Kung mo amin, wala man gina sa ilahan ng motawag og auntie og uncle. Kasagaran sa ila kay first name lang. Kung sa'y tawag sa kuan, maura pod na siya. And sa ato adere, grabe kaayo atong respeto sa atong pamilya. Even the decisions or our parents' decision magmatter gid na sa ato ah. If mo ingon atong mama og papa nga dili gyud na. Though part of us, since naman po influence ato ang western countries, gusto gud nato mo stand on our own, gusto nato nga motingog kung say gusto nato, but we are in the middle of something nga. If we want to stand up for our own good or for what we really want, we are also afraid that our parents might get angry or might be sad for the decisions that we will be making. Mao na siya nga nang ang uban naglibog na unsay buhaton kay gusto nila inani pero dili pwede kay mahadlok sila malain ang friends, no? Maskin pag kanang mangutana galig okay ra ni siya, pwede na ni siya kuan, pasar ni sa inyo ha, kinahanglan pa ipananghid ang uyab, ang kuan, 'di ba? Inana ka big deal sa tuwa ang kanang kuan, ang atong pamilya and our friends, the deep love that we have for them nga magmatter pati ang ilang decision. Masking at the end of the day, if you are in a relationship with someone, dili man ingon nga kung pitan, dili man ingon nga sila mag-date mo kasabay imong ginikanan, dili man pud din ana kamo man gihapon, kung magdayon man mo kamo ra man ang magdayon, kung magka-baby mo kamo man, 'di ba? Dili man siya ingon ana. Pero para sa ato adiri sa Philippines, sa eastern countries, big deal kaayo ang decision sa ginikanan. Magmatter gyud na kay mahadlok man ta nga dili ta tingugan for the rest of our lives. Di ta tingugan, dili ta tagaan og suporta inana. Kung walay blessing, lain daw kaay na malas daw na siya. So, maskin pagkuan there is ato among good sa Philippines, legally, if we are 25 years old and above, you are 25 years old and above, you can make your own decision. Pwede mo magminyo nga, masking walay consent sa ginikanan. Basta 25 na inyong edad pataas. 25 below or 24 below, kinahanglan dyan nagpirma sa ginikanan dito sa kuan sa marriage license. Pero maskin pag inana na ang edad kung 25 na ka legally pwede na magpakasal, big deal gihapon nga dapat gyud ka ng mamalay gihapon, no? Kinahanglan gyud mananghid gihapon sa mamagpapa sa babae. Kinahanglan gyapon siya inana masking tigwang na kay 40 na edad na gihapon pamalay. So inana ka big deal sa tuwa ang pamilya. So mo na ang very opposite sa individualistic nga point of view. Can you now identify the differences between the two? Anyone? Everyone? Are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there's no further explanations needed. Okay, it's very obvious but na kay we are observing it from our based from our day-to-day lives. Makita man nato makaingon tag basta nagali involvement sa laing tao, decisions that you are making or dealing with, most likely ang collective self ang ni overpower. Pero kung if you are making decisions on your own nga mo ni akong gusto buhaton, wa ko'y pakialam nga inana basta kay mao ni kay mao ni makaayo sa mao ni makaayo sa akong kinabuhi. Then individualistic ang imong pagtan-aw sa imong kaugalingon. Okay. Okay, thank you for watching. If you have some concern, please contact me via our group chat. Thank you.